Chapter 12, The Man of the Island. I was thrilled to have given Silver the slip and began to enjoy exploring the island. It was full of strange things to see, enough to excite the imagination and curiosity of any boy my age. I wish I could remember all of them, but my young mind was overwhelmed at the time with all the vivid new colors and sights. I could have spent a month just taking in all the strange plants and trees I came upon. I had marched across some marshy tract of land full of swaying willows and bulrushes, which I had read about in the Bible, and odd-shaped trees that rose up out of the swamp. Then there was some wave-like, sandy country that went on for about a mile. There you could see pines and twisted-looking trees that resembled oak, except for their purplish tinge. In the distance, I could see one of the hills with its craggy peak shining brightly beneath the harsh sun. Now I really began to feel like I was an explorer. I felt free and full of joy, forgetting for a time the many dangers I was facing. The island was truly uninhabited. My shipmates were left behind, and before me nothing lived but unfamiliar birds and other creatures that went running or flying for cover as soon as I approached. There were tortoises with backs so large they looked like bathing tubs, and magical flowering plants of a size and shape you only come upon in dreams. Suddenly, I heard a rustle among the bulrushes. A wild duck flew up with a quack, then another followed, and then another. Soon, along the whole surface of the marsh, a great cloud of birds hung screaming and circling in the air. I knew my shipmates must be coming up close, so I ran quickly and crouched behind the nearest tree not far from the swamp, and waited, silent as a mouse. I heard voices among them, one I knew to be Silver's. I overcame my fear and crawled closer to catch the meaning of their words. "You're more valuable than gold to me. That's why I'm warning you now. You can't change the plan. You can only save yourself by joining in. Come on now, Tom. Tell me what they would do to me if they knew I was telling you all this now." "Silver," said Tom, "you may have let yourself be led away, but not me. I'd sooner lose my hand than turn against." Suddenly, we all heard a cry of anger, and then a terrible drawn-out scream. The noise echoed across the crags of the spyglass, and the birds rose again in a rush. I knew it was a death cry, and Tom jumped to his feet. "What was that?" he asked. "That," answered Silver, "that'll be Alan." "Alan!" cried out Tom. "Well then, rest his soul. And as for you, Long John Silver, you're no mate of mine. I may die, but if I do, it will be for duty's sake. You've killed Alan, have you? Well, I defy you to kill me." And with that, Tom started running away. But Silver, full of new strength, steadied himself, leaned back, and aimed his crutch. Its point drove at the center of Tom's back, and he fell with a cry. I had no time to tell if this had hurt him badly. Silver was soon on him and, with his knife out, had driven 2 quick stabs into him to end his life. I heard Silver panting. I felt faint, but managed not to pass out as I watched him wipe the blood from his knife. The whole scene was playing over in my mind. Silver then pulled a whistle from his pocket and blew it twice. I knew that the other men would be coming quickly now, and if they had killed those 2 honest men, would they not kill me? I began to crawl back, and as I did so, I heard a chorus of voices ringing out. I turned, racing through the thicket until I ran only in fear. I needed to return to the ship with the men, but how could I? As I thought it through again, I knew they would wring my neck if I tried. I said my silent goodbyes to the Hispaniola, to the doctor, and to the squire and captain. I knew there remained for me only death by starvation or at the hands of the mutineers. Yet I continued to make speed through the trees until I was at the foot of a little hill. There, my heart thumping, a fresh alarm brought me to a standstill. Suddenly, I saw a shadow move just beyond my eye, and I knew I was not alone. I stood stock still as I saw it run past me, almost doubled over. I could not tell if it was man or monkey. I started running again and saw that it was set on cutting me off, and so became more afraid of it than of Silver. But I readily remembered that I had a pistol with me and turned briskly to face this mountain man. He stepped out of the trees and walked toward me. "Who are you?" I asked. "Ben Gunn," he answered with a voice rusty and awkward from lack of use. "I'm poor Ben Gunn, and I haven't spoken to a soul in 3 years. I could see now he was a man like me, however sunburned and bearded he was. His lips were cracked, and he was dressed in rags made from pieces of old ship's canvas. I asked if he had been shipwrecked. "No, marooned," he answered. I had heard this word before and knew what it meant. A terrible punishment, where someone accused of a crime is left all alone on an island to fend for himself. Then he told me how he had survived on goats, berries, and oysters, and that he had long dreamed of eating cheese once again. Well, I told him, if I can get back on my ship, you shall have it. I then told Ben my name, and he told me with a crazed grin and in a whisper a great secret. Jim, he hissed, I have nothing, but I am rich. He went on to tell me that he would make me a rich man too, and asked quickly if my ship was Flint's. Suddenly, I trusted him, and told him that the ship was not Flint's, and that Flint was dead, and that some of the men were Flint's, and were mutineers and murderers. Not a man with one leg, he gasped. Yes, Silver is their leader, I answered, seeing him shiver. I told him at that point all that had happened. Do you think, he asked, if I could help, that the squire would take me on and perhaps let me keep 1,000 pounds of this money? I answered that he would of course do so. Then Ben revealed to me that he had been on board with Flint's men, when Flint had gone ashore with 6 men and buried the treasure. These 6 he had somehow killed with his own hands, and had never told a soul on board where the treasure was. Those who asked were told they were welcome to stay on the island and try to find the treasure. Of course, they all said no. But poor Ben was back with another ship 3 years later and, upon seeing the island, had told the crew he could find the treasure. After 3 days of searching, they cursed his name and left him to fend for himself, leaving him only a musket, a spade, and a shovel. But you tell your squire, he said, that when not pining for home and for cheese, Ben has been occupied with another matter that should interest him. I answered that of course I would, but that I had no way of getting back to the ship. Well, said Ben, pointing to a cove, we could always in a pinch use this little boat that I have made. I kept it by a white rock that lies farther down toward the shore. And with that we heard cannon fire and gunshots ringing out through the air. The sun was still high in the sky. I knew that the fighting aboard ship had begun. Ben kept me low and out of sight. Then he pointed some distance ahead to where the English flag fluttered in the wind.